My name is Tova Laiter, and today we have the honor of hosting two award-winning producers who are making successful movies, both in their native Israel and abroad. Let's welcome Osnat Handelsman and Talia Kleinhendler. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, let's start with the fact. The Lost Daughter is a stunning movie.
Thank you.
Not only because of the daring subject matter, but also because of how astute and assured Maggie Gyllenhal directing debut is, really. You would think that she has been directing for ages. We would like to ask you a lot of questions about it, but first, we want to know, how did each one of you start in the business?
Well, I started actually in distribution. I did acquisitions and distribution for an Israeli distribution company for many years. I was very fortunate to work on movies like The Aviator, $1 Million Baby, and 4 months, 3 weeks, and 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, and all these wonderful award-winning movies. I think at some point after about 8 or 9 years in distribution, I felt like I've had enough. Like, I love reading scripts. Until today, that's one of my favorite things. But I felt like something was missing. And this is when I took some time off, and a mutual friend introduced me to Talia.
Okay. Were you working in Israel in distribution?
In Israel.
Okay.
I was working for an Israeli distribution company that was working with all of the bigger American, European companies on both very commercial and very art house films. So I had the privilege of going to work every day to either watch movies or read scripts and, you know, have fun distributing them. So that was incredible.
And they even paid you for it. They even paid you for it.
I know.
Amazing.
And fly to the festivals to do that. Although I want to say some movies, watching them at 8 a.m. in the morning in Cannes, not very easy. So yeah, but I don't complain.
And Talia?
I also went to film school in Tel Aviv University, and then I kind of started out, I got a job at what was once like a very big production company in Israel, and I worked there for about a year. And then I kind of decided to go out on my own, and I set up the company, which is still our production company to this day, Pi Films. And, you know, I kind of started by specializing in international co-productions, and I worked with like very experienced producers in Israel because I was 24, I didn't know much. So I worked with a lot of very experienced producers in Israel, and I partnered with them, and I kind of took care of the co-production side and the financing side. And I did a few films that way until I kind of felt like I was secure enough to go out and produce on my own. And then I started producing films, Israeli films or Israeli, Canadian, Belgian, French, German co-productions. And that's around when I had already done 1 or 2 films myself with the company. Osnat joined me. And then we kind of continued producing together till today.
And why did you feel that the two of you needed each other?
I don't know if we felt like we needed each other as much as we really enjoyed each other's company. I mean, we were introduced by a mutual friend that was trying to get us to meet for a long time with no agenda. And then we just met for lunch, and Talia sent me a couple of scripts she was working on just for my notes or my thoughts. And I read the script we ended up making called The Farewell Party, and fell in love with it, and called her and said, I will do anything to make this movie happen. Like, what can I do to help? And this is how we started working together, and it ended up a partnership.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your method of putting movies together? because it's successful. So I want people to know what is the method.
I don't know that we have one clear method. I think it really depends on the film and how it, in what stage it comes to us. You know, so every film is very different. Often it's a filmmaker like Nadav Lapid or Sharon Maimon and Tal Granit or different directors that we work with who come to us with a script or with something they've developed.
Or an idea.
And then or an idea, it depends at what stage. And then kind of we work with them on the script until we all feel it's ready to go out into the world. And then, you know, there's different methods of financing in Israel and Europe. It's very much about a combination of like film fund and government money together with market money like TV and sales. So that's very much one path, which is very different than the US kind of way of financing. So that's, yeah.
No, I think you're lucky because I used to work for a very, very big producer and, you know, big movies, big stars. And then he went back to Hungary, became head of the producer thing. And he kept telling me that he tells his people and students there, you're very, very lucky because of that structure, because it's so much easier to start, you know, when you have all those institutions instead of here, you kind of on your own in a way, you know, unless you work for a company. So, okay, so from that, how did you get to go to lunch with Maggie Gyllenhal? Because we all want to. We don't know how.
You're right. Everyone should.
Everyone should do that. I mean, we produced a movie called The Kindergarten Teacher by Nadav Lapid. And just before the movie, when it got into Cannes, just before we went to Cannes, we had this idea to turn it into an English language movie. Basically because we thought it would be extremely interesting to set this movie a bit differently in New York at a different place. So we went, Sarah Colangelo, we looked for a writer-director. Sarah Colangelo wrote the script, and then we approached Maggie to
Who wrote the script? Who wrote the script?
Sarah Colangelo wrote and directed The Kindergarten Teacher, the remake.
Yes.
We produced it once as an Israeli film, and then we remade it into an American film.
I saw it last night. It's an excellent, excellent movie. So, okay.
So then
But
we approached Maggie.
But who financed the writer? Who financed the script?
We did.
We financed a lot of the development ourselves in a way to allow us to develop the script and the project to what we really want it to be. So there is kind of independence that we try to have at least in the very early stages, to allow ourselves and our filmmakers to have a bit of room. We developed the Lost Daughter ourselves as well, we and Maggie.
With
we
Maggie,
optioned the book, and you know, Maggie wrote the script, so everything. And we actually went to finance the movie when we already cast Olivia and Jesse and Peter.
Okay,
So
okay, don't rush, because the interesting part comes now.
So basically what happened is that Maggie had already agreed to star in The Kindergarten Teacher, and we kind of came to New York to meet her, basically having already agreed.
But I want to get to that step, which is, how do you go from having a movie produced in Israel, The Kindergarten Teacher, then you hire a writer to do a script in English. And then what happened? You submit the script to her agent reads it, gives it to Maggie?
Well, it was a combination. Basically, Sarah, who also wrote the script, but also directed the movie. So she was a writer-director, which often is easier because it's a one person that's doing both jobs. And she's super talented and just a really wonderful person that we all enjoyed working with. And so she was, you know, we were speaking to her team at WME. We were speaking to some casting people that we were working with, and we came up with Maggie's Maggie as an idea, which we all thought was wonderful and amazing because she's an actress that for years all of us admire. And yes, and we sent her the script through her agent and as well as through a casting director that we were working with. And she read it, and we were very lucky that she just really fell in love with the script and wanted to do it. And then she met with Sarah first in New York, and they got along really well because that's always an important step for the, director and actor to get along and have a good dialogue. And so that's basically how we got her into the film. And she also ended up coming on as a partner with us as a producer as well on The Kindergarten Teacher.
Right. Amazing movie, also on Netflix for all the students. Yeah. You will do very well to watch it. And so when you went to get Sarah, is that her name, the director?
Yeah.
How did you get to Sarah?
Well, we always watch a lot of movies. We were looking for an interesting young female filmmaker for this movie. We saw a lot of movies. We read a lot of scripts that were sent to us. We met with a few people and felt like Sarah was the right match. So we had the advantage with that one that we had a film that we could show them, so they could have an idea or a take, or we could have a more informed conversation. But we were just very impressed by her first film, and the beautiful thing was that she really did turn around a very beautiful script, and in a way, Talia and Maggie and Sarah and I went to do this movie, which was a very small film, but we were really kind of this group of women that were just, completely passionate about the project. So from that point on, it was just about who else are you bringing into this passion, and that leads us to the lunch with Maggie, which we met her in New York. We had an incredible connection from the first moment, Talia and Maggie and I. And at the end of that lunch, we were just talking about all sorts of things. And I don't know how we came to just ask her if she ever thought about directing, because she really is such an incredibly smart woman, but more than anything, she really is an artist. And the way that she approached, and the conversations we had even initially about The Kindergarten Teacher, there was something already there. You started the way that she kind of breaks the script and thinks about, all sorts of things that involve the film, is the way really a filmmaker thinks about it. And at the end of that lunch, she took us to this lovely bookstore in the village and bought us Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. And we haven't read Elena Ferrante before that. And in a way, that kind of was set the tone for everything that followed, because she introduced us to Ferrante's work to begin with. And as we were working on The Kindergarten Teacher together, we kept kind of asking, okay, so, what about directing? And if you wanted to direct, what would you want to direct? And she said, if I would direct anything, I would love to adapt a Ferrante book. So this is how things kind of
Well, let me ask you something. So it seems that in your two American movies, so to speak, right, The Kindergarten and The Thing, they were based on previous material.
Yes.
So would you say that owning an IP is probably the most important path to producers to get established Hollywood talent?
I don't know.
I mean, I think, there are many ways in which things start. I think at the end of the day, I believe it's really first and foremost about relationships and about, connection and wanting, having a common vision. And I think kind of what happened with The Kindergarten Teacher is we were working with an artist that we were interested in. And so we together said, okay, what are we going to do together? I think that was more the seed of it. I think the IP came after. And of course, it's an important step in the process. And there is it is helpful when you're basing it on something, when you have something to hang your hat on, as far as, the underlying material. So that's always one way to develop a movie. But I don't think it was like, it's kind of one thing led to the other in a way. I think it was first the relationship, then the IP, and then the movie.
No, but even the kindergarten teacher in Israeli form, by going to Cannes and so on and so forth, it is prior material. It's
definitely. And I think the benefit that we have as producers who are producing in Israel, and it's very similar throughout Europe, is that we own our IPs. So we own our movies. So then we have the ability to remake them, which is a huge advantage, definitely. And it's something that, the kindergarten teacher, the fact that we had a movie, the fact that we could go out in the world and say, this is what we want to do, definitely helped us with that first step. Absolutely. And that led to the relationships that came after.
Okay, so let me ask you something, because the last question, then I'm going to forward to the student. I'm a big fan of Elena Ferrante, and my question is, because I didn't read this particular book, is how different is the book from the movie? And what was the challenge to adapt it? It's probably a question for Maggie, but she's not here, so you disaggregate.
I mean, I think the movie is very similar to the book and very different from the book in many ways. I think the core idea of the book and the underlying truth of the book and all of Elena Ferrante's work, which is like this incredible, truthful portrayal of a female experience. I think all of that is very strongly in the movie, and all the kind of ideas and themes of the book are very strongly in the movie. But I think, there's a lot of ways that Maggie had to figure out, because the book is very internal. And I think the very big challenge, I think Maggie did an incredible job, is to take this inner world and bring it out into a movie and put it on a screen and make you feel it and see it in a visual medium. So I think that was the biggest challenge. And I think Maggie did an incredible job with that.
Incredible job. Really
and
incredible.
I think part of the brilliance of her script was that there was something so strong in the way she built the characters, in the structure, that even when we had, this was written originally to be shot in New Jersey. This was supposed to be East Coast. And because of COVID, we were supposed to shoot in August 20, and I think mid-May, we realized there's no way we're doing that, and started thinking of other ideas. And Maggie came up with Greece. And really, we started moving towards Greece in June, and we're on the ground in August. But the fact is that even when she did the adaptation to Greece, it didn't really change,
right?
The script, the essence of the script. It changed a lot of things, and she changed and added them. But at the end of the day, the power of the script, the characters, the setups, everything remained the same, a lot of the dialogue. Yeah. So I think that is an incredible testament to her script.
Yeah, amazing. It was very visual, and it really helped also that it's in Greece, I think it's a little
we can't imagine it any other way now.
I know. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions. So Mike, do we have students' questions?
We do. We have a question here from Ellie Shearer. Ellie, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Yes, my question was, what was it like to work with Netflix on this project?
Incredible. Hi, Ellie.
Hi.
It was, we actually produced it with Endeavor Content, and it was an incredible experience producing it with them, and a pleasure. And Netflix came on board. They bought the movie, so we didn't produce it with Netflix. They just bought it, and they're doing the distribution. And it's been, I think for a filmmaker, it's heaven. Really, you have this incredibly talented group of people who are the best at what they do. They love the film. They're so extremely passionate about it. We feel like, our core group of people that made this movie just became bigger. it's been one of the most filmmaker friendly experiences I think we've ever had. It's a gift. It's really been a gift.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
We have a question here from Molly Murphy. Molly, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I have two, so I'm gonna have to choose which one I want to prioritize. And I suppose you've described Elena Ferrante's book as a very internal piece of work. And obviously when you are adapting a book that is perhaps based on a character whose world you're experiencing through her thoughts, what are the main tools that you, Maggie and Helene, your cinematographer, use to translate that into something visual and something that you can feel through a screen?
Well, I think the first step is the script itself, which I think if you see the film, it's just about kind of translating it into what do you say, what don't you say, what you show. I think in this film, it's a lot about the gaze, but it's the female gaze in a way, and the characters looking at each other, especially Olivia Coleman's character, Leida's character, observing the people around her, and especially Dakota Johnson and Nina's character. So I think that's something very, that really helped. And I think that in the cinematography, I think, a lot of it is very close to Leida. It's very close to Olivia Coleman in a way that, you're very clearly in her mind and in her point of view of everything you're seeing. And I think that were some of the tools that were used, but really I think the real work was the screenplay, and I think that's kind of on the screen when you see the film.
Thank you so much.
Second question, you had
two. If I may. So obviously The Lost Daughter is based on underlying material. Have you ever in your careers come up with an idea yourselves as storytellers that may or may not have quite a defined structure, and reached out yourselves to a writer to create that for you? And I suppose my question has several angles. How might it be for a writer to write something with quite strict instructions or within a structure? Have you ever come across such a relationship?
I think there's a lot of projects, especially when we're doing it for the, English language international market, that we actually generate. From ideas, from, sometimes from other material that we want to develop. A lot of times it could be something that we read and we have kind of a very specific take on it. I think the way we work is we feel this is a collaboration. So we go to filmmakers, writers and directors that we think are very talented, and we have a very open conversation about how do they see the project and how do we see the project, and try to find a way that we have the same vision. And we understand that every person that you kind of bring on board in this sort of marriage has an opinion. So it's about who do we want to work with, whose vision do we share and believe in, and how do we translate that into something beautiful on screen. So I don't know if that answers your question, but in a way for us, this is how we work on everything.
Yes, no, the beauty of collaboration and sharing your vision and hoping to find someone that will
their vision and
only
being
feed
open
in.
to,
yes.
I think it's a little bit about being open to other people's ideas and being surprised and going with, you can start off with one idea and then someone, and that goes, in every movie, in any collaboration you have. This is how we work with filmmakers on their own ideas. We say, well, what about this? And what if this character does that? And what if, and what if we shoot here? And what if we do that? This is always about the relationship you have, and the collaboration and feeding off each other to create something more beautiful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is how I started off working. And then sometimes you have an idea and you get so, you love your idea so much, you don't want anyone to sort of taint it. But collaboration, as you say, is the key, and being open to input and admiring other people's work. Thank you. That was a lovely reply.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
We have a question here from Jenny McNabb. Jenny, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests? So Jenny might be having some trouble with her mic, so I'll go ahead and pose that question. What was the process for you of getting the rights to the novel to make The Lost Daughter?
Osnat, do you want to take that?
That's my favorite question.
It's Osnat's favorite question. So
we originally set out to look for another Elena Ferrante book. And we spent a couple of months basically talking to everyone we knew in Italy, from the Venice Film Festival people to Italian distributors, to all these people, to just figure out who's the person that has the rights, like how do we approach? Then we found out who it was.
Because Elena, just to say for whoever doesn't know, Elena Ferrante is a pen name. She's anonymous, so no one really knows who she is, and you can't contact her directly.
But you can contact the publisher or
exactly.
agent.
Yeah.
So then we were figuring out who at the publishing house was the right person and tried calling him, sent him tons of emails. Of course, it was just July and the Italians go on vacation until September.
Yeah.
And then at one point, I'll just tell this funny story. One day we just had enough and wanted to understand. So I just called the secretary there and just said that I was with him on a call and got disconnected. And he's waiting to hear from me, and I can just get his mobile number. And she was so, and she somehow gave me his number, like his personal number. I called him and he said, well, I know I got your 1,000 emails, but we're on holiday until September. And on September 1st, we finally got to speak. And he, a wonderful man called Maurizio Dell'Olso, who just became a friend, really the rights for the book that we were after to begin with were already attached. There was an issue. So he actually suggested, would you look at this book, The Lost Daughter, that is available? And Talia and I read over a day and called Maggie and said, listen, read this book, which she read over a day. And then we started negotiating for this deal. And it was a very long negotiation because, of course, every book of hers is a big deal.
But before they would let us negotiate with them, they said that Elena Ferrante herself has to approve, that we take the rights. So Maggie also had to write her a letter to explain why we wanted the book and what she wanted to do with it, basically. And so Maggie wrote a beautiful, beautiful letter to Elena Ferrante, and we sent it to her through the publisher. And then they came back to us and said, yes, based on this letter, we're willing to give you the rights. So
only if Maggie actually, one of Elena's conditions was that Maggie gets the rights only if she directs it.
Yeah, that she can't change her mind and not direct. And what was also very special here is that in all of Elena Ferrante's previous adaptations, they were done in Italian, and she was very involved in the writing, obviously through emails, etc. But she kept control of the script. And in this case, Maggie said from the beginning that she had to do it in English. She had to set it in the US because that's what she knows. And Ferrante gave us complete freedom in the script. She just let us do let Maggie do what she believed was creatively right. And that was a very unique situation for her because she's never done that before or since.
Well, it all worked out, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
She had the right instinct. Yeah,
exactly. She's a very smart woman.
Yeah. Okay, next.
I have a question here from Monica Lopez. Monica, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Hi, Monica.
Okay. So my question, I know you mentioned you were planning to film in the US, in New Jersey, and then you changed it to Greece. So
Yeah.
I know you said it was like for the script, it wasn't that difficult, but production-wise, like, did you have any difficulties with the logistics of everything, changing the location?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it actually, and it was one of those situations where you have like this thing that you have to do for logistic reasons, and it turns out for the best, you know. I mean, it was in the middle of a pandemic, so we really didn't have a choice. We had to find a place where all our very international crew could come, first of all, because if you remember at the beginning of COVID, everyone was shutting their borders. So it was very, and we had a very international crew. We have a French DP, British and Irish actors, Israeli producers, so we were a nightmare to get into any country because we're foreigners everywhere. Like any country you choose, half of us are foreigners. So we had to, first of all, find a place that was open, to us. And Greece that year was just kind of opening up for the summer because they had to. And so we knew we could get everyone in there. And then we, kind of the benefit, because we do so many international co-productions, we kind of know producers everywhere in the world. So we called a very good friend of ours who's actually a German producer, but he's of Greek origin, and we did a Greek co-production with him years back. And we started just checking with him about the situation, and we found out that Greece had a 40% tax rebate, and they had really excellent crews, and they were opening up. And so that really helped us to get to make the first steps, logistically to moving to Greece. So in a way, it just ended up being a huge advantage. So I wouldn't even say that it was difficult. It was difficult to make the switch in our minds, but the minute we did that, and Maggie kind of said, yeah, let's do it in Greece, and kind of the minute we made that switch in our minds, we were there. We were there like about 2 months or even less after we made the decision.
Like you made that switch, and then creatively it just all fell into place, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think, Maggie was amazing because she would, not every director can take a script that they've worked on and had in their minds in a certain way and make that leap. But she did it in a very kind of natural way. And I think in the end, the script was better for it because, it just, I can't imagine having made this movie anywhere else.
Right.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
I have a question here from Vijaytha Murali. Vijaytha, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Thank you very much. Brilliant movie. I just think The Lost Daughter covers so many interesting themes around feminism, motherhood, kind of perfectionism, I think, being a movie. And I'd really be interested to know what themes were most striking to you when you first read the script, and what really sparked your passion to bring it alive, and also what the main message was that you as producers were trying to get across in the film, because it was filled with so many.
Well, first of all, thank you. I think for both Talia and I and Maggie, there was something when we read the book that we felt there's all these truths there that no one is saying out loud about, we're all mothers, we're all women. We felt like we're not seeing the women we know, the women we are on screen a lot. We're seeing all kinds of versions.
Yeah. And
especially of mothers. And I think what drew us to this film, and what is making, and we're getting today to the everyday so many reactions about this movie, is the fact that, it is presenting something that was never said before. I think, Tova, you were saying before, it's like a taboo, okay? A mother has to be, always, she wakes up and she does the laundry as she makes the lunch, and she's wearing a lipstick, and it's so easy, or she's a bad mommy, and everything she does is bad. And we're not that, none of us are. And I think women generally are always held to this kind of boxes we need to fit, and we don't fit in any box. Yeah. We just live. So what we wanted, and what I hope this movie did, was to show, these characters who are flawed and have emotions and have all these little things from reality that are, unique to them maybe, but also common to all of us. And Maggie captured something in the script, even in some lines that are not from the book, that are her own, that are so, at the heart of being a mother and being a woman. And I think for us, besides just enjoying making this film so much with all these incredible people, there's something about getting calls and, you know, reading all these things that are written about the film and seeing how people react and feel a little bit like, yes, they are. What we try to do is put a woman on screen that you identify with, although you would never maybe do what she did, but you understand. And if we were able to do that, I think we're very fortunate.
There was an article today in the Sydney Daily Herald, which to me is like an encapsulation of what we tried to do with the movie. And this writer was saying how, as a result of the film, that she was having all these kinds of honest conversations with all these different women about, you know, the truths of motherhood, and where they felt that they had, you know, related to what happens in the film, and where they had, you know, like all of us, done things that they, with their children, that they didn't feel completely comfortable with. And I think, to me, that was just the biggest gift of all, you know, because it's a testament to the fact that we can offer comfort to people through film by just seeing themselves on screen and saying, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person who feels this way. It's normal to feel this way. Everyone feels this way. And I think for us, that's the biggest gift, you know.
I have a question for you, which is maybe a bigger question that maybe nobody can answer, which is really, you know, in a time where there's no taboos. I mean, you know, you can show today on the screen extreme brutal violence and explicit sex and gender fluid. It's like the last taboo, and also in life, not just in movies. And I just kept thinking, because of the movie, where does it come from? Does it come from religion? Is it nature itself that just wants us to propagate and multiply and keep, you know, that is the big question, really.
I think Maggie has a beautiful answer for that I'm going to steal for a minute. I think, you know, what Maggie keeps saying is that we're all someone's daughters and sons. We all have a mother, and we all want to think that our mothers, you know, love us the best and will do anything for us. And maybe it's a survival, you know, maybe we want to know and we want to think, because we don't choose to come to the world. We come in a, you know, that the people, our parents, will always love us more than anything and want us to, you know, and want to be there for us more than anything else. And I think mothers more than fathers somehow in modern society, although so many fathers are incredible parents and are, you know, identifying with this movie so much because they are making the same compromises and having the same difficulties. But I think mothers are still, in a way, not allowed to have any sort of anything else that they want. You know, they have to.
I think it. Sorry. No, I think there's a line in the. Yeah. There's a line in the film where Leda says, "I'm an unnatural mother."
Yes.
And to me, that's the essence of the movie, because there's no such thing as a natural mother, or an unnatural mother, because, you know, that you're told that we're led to believe that you have a child and you know exactly what to do, you know, because it's natural. That's just how nature is. And anyone who's ever had a child knows that it's the opposite of that. You know, you get this beautiful little thing and you're like, okay, what do I do now? And I think that's the biggest myth that's perpetuated in society. The idea that being a mother is natural. It's natural in that it happens through nature, but there's nothing natural about it. It's a process that you need to learn how to do. It doesn't come naturally. And so I think, to me, that's the thing that this movie is kind of breaking apart, is that there's no such thing as a natural mother and there's no such thing as an unnatural mother. We're all kind of somewhere in between.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting that the author Elena Ferrante wrote about that, because when my friends started to have young children, the only people that copped to the fact that it wasn't for them were writers. And one of them said to me, the reason is, she said, as a writer, I live in my head, and the children keep taking me out of my head, you know, and that, you know, and Elena is an author, she's writing, and obviously there's something there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's also the greatest joy, but the great joy and great pain always go together.
Yeah. The best of life and the worst of life, as Richard
Exactly.
Dreyfuss told me about children. Okay, so let's go to the next question.
We have a question here from Shauna Ego. Shauna, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hi, thank you so much. I wanted to first say that I have a group of writer women that get together, and we all got together over Zoom to discuss our great love of this film. And I just want you to know that was an amazing hour spent with brilliant women who are writing great material, who were blown away, and the opportunity to discuss this film, as you say, as mothers, as creators ourselves, but also receiving your art in this manner was such a joy. And one of the things it brought up was that a lot of storytelling we've been exposed to historically has been linear and male-minded. And so this meandering and sitting with, you know, characters and thoughts in this way is much more of a female way of storytelling that we really appreciated. So I wanted to thank you and just make that comment. And my questions, there's so many moments. I wish I could talk to you for hours, but there's two that really struck me visually. And I wondered how they came about, if you wouldn't mind sharing. And the first is in the fruit bowl, when she turns over the fruit and it's rotten underneath. I just thought, oh my God, here we go, strap in, this is gonna be a ride. Like, that choice in that moment was so powerful, and I get goosebumps even just recalling it now. And then when Leda is walking and the pine cone hits her back and she falls to her knees, and of course, Olivia Coleman's execution of that moment, it's just such a delight. But would you mind sharing how those two moments came to be?
Well, both those ideas exist in the book, in the original book. But I think it's the visual execution. That's like the core of adapting, right? It's the visual execution of this idea that exists in the book, which is what you see on screen, you know. So I think how it looks is basically this idea that exists in the book, and then Maggie taking it and translating it visually. And I think the pine cone was a really tricky idea, you know, because basically, you know, the idea, first of all, that a pine cone could really, you know, do that to someone's back. And also, you know, it's obviously she kind of is already starting to think maybe it's not just a pine cone, maybe someone's after her, right? She's already kind of starting to have these thoughts. So I think actually the pine cone scene to me is a brilliant interpretation by a director of an idea that was in a book. You know, how you see it, you see Olivia's face, then you see the pine cone on the ground, and you feel what happened, you know, you feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's, you know, I think that kind of was something that came through the writing and then into the directing, and it was always growing as an idea. And it was a very tricky idea to execute, and I think it works. So, you know, thank you for it.
Certainly does. It's masterful. Yeah, thank you so much. The brilliance of the writing, the directing, and the acting. It's such a joy. Thank you so much for making this film.
Thank you.
I have a question here from Nathalie Vargas. Nathalie, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
hi, Natalie.
Hi, I imagine there were many challenges in the process, as you mentioned before, but in general, which was the most difficult challenge of this production?
I think it's always challenging to make a movie. Making a movie in a pandemic is way more challenging, especially since this one really we went to start production. We were one of the first movies that started production. I think the biggest challenge maybe was just not the shooting itself, because I have to say everything was such a pleasure making this movie, but the unknown factor of COVID, you know, we tested, we did everything, you know, all of the regulations, but a lot of it we had to kind of come up with rules, additional rules to keep everyone safe. We quarantined everyone on the island for 2 weeks. We had all these ways to kind of, have different groups and make sure that we keep everyone happy. I think maybe the answer is, how do you as a producer keep everyone happy so they can do their best work while there's a pandemic? This is before vaccine. And every day someone can stop the production and be sick. And at that point, being sick meant maybe dying. Like, this is the way we were thinking of it. So I think for us, when the last COVID tests on the shoot, I think the day before our last day came negative, Talia and I and Maggie, we were like, okay. And then there are all sorts of things, but in a way, for me at least, it was really getting everyone safely in and safely out of the island. I mean, Greece closed 2 days after we finished production. So I think throughout making this movie, we had to be creative about making decisions. I mean, every time a border closed, our DP couldn't get to New York for the grading. We moved the grading to Paris, and we did it remotely. Talia was stuck as she was doing in New York editing with Maggie. She was stuck there because the borders in Israel were closed. It was constantly about creating, producing, and keeping calm.
I think it was like producing, triple, times 1,000, because basically producing is always, okay, at least for us, you make a decision to make a movie, and then you just have to keep going straight no matter what kind of obstacles come in your way. And here it was like a crazy obstacle course that we could never have imagined, because it's hard enough, as anyone who's ever tried to make a movie knows, and then you have this added factor. So I felt like Maggie and Osnat and I made the decision that we were making this movie that summer, no matter what happened. And we had to do it responsibly, because we also wanted everyone to be safe and well, but we knew that we would find a way. And it was kind of a situation where, okay, we can't do it that way, so we do it that way. We can't do it that way, we do it that way. And it was just like that. It was, the hardest part was probably this determination to say, no, even if it seems impossible, we're making this movie, we're making it now with these people, and that's it. And I think that was the biggest challenge, to keep that belief for, no matter what the world threw at us. And at that particular moment in time, it threw a lot at us.
Well, I'm glad that you made it. I'm from Peru. Here the movie was really a success.
We're happy to hear it. Thank you so much.
We have a question here from Rebecca O'Brien. Rebecca, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests? So it looks like we're having trouble unmuting Rebecca, but I will pose this question. How did you find trying to convey the lead character's bad reactions to her daughter in such a way that it wasn't perceived badly?
Well, I think it has a lot to do, first of all, with the casting. I think for Maggie and for us, it was very clear from the beginning that this is not a story about a crazy woman. This is a story about someone who's fundamentally sane. Because if she's crazy, we can all say, oh, well, she's a terrible mother and we're all so wonderful and we can go about our day. But if she's sane and you relate to her, then we're saying something much more powerful. And so I think in casting first Olivia, there's something about Olivia that's, first of all, likable. You relate to her, not likable because I hate that word, so forget I said that, but you relate to her. She feels like very sane, very grounded, like any of us, that she could be any of us. And I think that's why you go with her, even though she does things that you might not like. And I think it's the same with Jessie Buckley. I think Jessie, has this fire and has this just feeling of being a really real person, and everything she does, you still care about her. And I think that was the first thing, casting in that way, because it was clear to us that that's what needed to happen, that you had to feel for these women, you had to care for them, you had to, no matter what they did, you couldn't say, oh, no, that's not me, that's this crazy person on screen, because this is not a movie about that. It's a movie about a very sane, normal person who does things that are just at the edges of all of our experiences.
And part of it is Maggie is a director. I mean, I think she's such an exceptional director, and her work with actors is just really something that I think you don't see a lot. And there was something about the process and the way she worked with the actresses in bringing the Laitas and Nina, you know, into life, and making them these round women who you feel for throughout. I think that was a lot of kind of the secret ingredient to why you're so, you feel like you just want to hold their hand, you know, and they make you feel like it's okay when you're having, you know, a bit of an off moment and all these little things. So I think it's both the casting and Maggie.
Yeah, and I think it was very clear that that's what needed to happen in order for the film to work. So that was one of the biggest challenges, I think.
Yeah.
Incredible. Mike?
Thank you. I have one final question here, a follow-up to that conversation about Olivia, and that is, did you always intend to cast Olivia Coleman? And how do you typically go about choosing actors that will be so successful for your projects?
What the director?
I think, first of all, I think basically everyone should always cast Olivia Coleman. Anything. I think Maggie and us, we had, I don't know if we, you know, Maggie wrote it and I don't think she had anyone in mind. I think the only two roles where she really had someone in mind was Professor Hardy for Peter and Dagmara, who plays Callie, which Maggie worked with her before, and she really had her in mind when she wrote it, and like for that. But I think as we started talking about, as we said before, who do we want Leda to be? What kind of actress needs to portray it? And this humor that you wanted her to have, you know, she has all these moments in the script where she's saying all these like semi-rude jokes or all these moments, and everything needs to work, the emotion and the humor. So Olivia was the person, and of course, an actress we all admire and think is incredible. It was kind of an easy conversation. And Maggie was saying, you know, let's ask her, because everyone wants Olivia, you know, and she's doing, you know, all these amazing projects. And Maggie said, I'll ask her. And if she says no, I'll be disappointed. We all will be, and we'll hold hands and cry. No, just me. And then she just, Olivia read the script and loved it and met Maggie for lunch. And the rest is history.
So the key is to have a budget for lunch, is basically.
And that's always the key, by the way.
So I have a question to ask you. Thank you very much. Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry. No. Okay. So whose lost daughter are we talking about? Who is the lost daughter?
I think everyone is lost daughters. There are so many lost daughters in the movie and in life. So I think that to me, that's the answer. I think, you know, Leda is the lost daughter, and Nina is the lost daughter, and everyone, you know, all of us.
And the daughter, Nina's daughter that disappeared is the lost daughter for a while.
Yeah, but they're, you know, I think I think they're all lost daughters.
Interesting.
I think in a way, this movie that is, you know, if you think about it, we went to do this movie about this character that does all these crazy things for some people, but actually we were trying to say, look at this woman, she's like all of us. Very female-driven movie. I think in a way, the fact that this movie has been found by everyone, you know, and the lost daughter, it kind of makes us, I don't know, for us, that is like the big thing, that we were trying to make a movie about lost daughters, but everyone found it. That's
interesting. Okay, and then last question, because it's an hour, but the last scene of the movie, it's ambiguous, and I'm sure you want to leave it that way. You know, I mean, you see her bleeding on the beach and you say, oh my God, are they going to punish her because she was a bad mother? And then she
No.
talks to her daughter, and then you feel there's this redemption, then everything is going to be okay. And so you're not going to tell me, I suppose, what you think the last scene is, but
I don't think anyone knows, and I think it is ambiguous. I think the only thing that is clear and I think is important is that she is alive, you know, and whatever happens, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, but she's alive and she'll keep on living and keep on probably making mistakes, like anyone. So I think, no, 100% she's not punished. That's the one thing I don't think we're saying.
I figured not to women mothers. We're going to
that's not it. And actually, just one note, which is interesting, the end of the book is in a way the opposite of the end of the movie textually, but it's in fact the same idea, because the end of the book, the last line of the book is "I'm dead, but I'm fine." And the last line of the movie is "I'm alive, actually." And, you know, as Maggie said, and I believe that, I think it actually means the same thing, but what it means is she's alive. And the rest is for everyone to interpret.
Yeah, and now we can wait for the sequel. So it will be on the south of France beach. That's what I would like.
It will be on a beach somewhere.
It will be on the
for
beach
sure.
We highly recommend shooting on a beach.
We want to make all movies on the beach in Greece with Maggie.
Yes. Well, I just want to commend you for showing up and coming here, and, you know, instead of just sitting in front of the TV vegging out, you actually at a late hour, you came here, you parsed wisdom from your experiences, and basically shed some light how you can make movies in other countries and they can end up being an Oscar frontrunner picked up by Netflix, and most important, that touch so many people on so many levels, which is just the icing on the cake of everything else. I myself thought it was like a stunning thing, and now I'm going to read the book. So, and I can't wait for the fourth season of, you know, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. And I can't wait to see what the two of you are going to do next, because it just seems to me that you're doing really, really fantastic work.
Thank you.
And you know, it's arty and it's also successful. And I think it's both because of what the subject matter is. Like watching last night, The Kindergarten Teacher on Netflix, you know, it's just a fantastic thing. You finish watching it and then you basically just go because you want to read about it more and more, you know what I mean? So that's one of the testaments of something that really touches you and has durability. So I want to thank you very much, Osnat and Talia.
Thank you for having us. Thank you,
that
everyone.
experience. I think that the students learned a lot from you, and I learned a lot from you after all these years, because there's all kind of ways of making movies, and we have a lot of international students, and I am sure they all got inspired, and you'll see them all in Cannes next year.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you for having us.